jewelry store, which is called Hartman's. I'm still really satisfied with that name. I went through a lot of name options. Also, my game kept freezing like unbelievable amounts. I tried to pause the recording while it was happening just so that we didn't get stuck, but like, it's happening a little bit. Moving past. Yeah, I'm really satisfied with the name, because I had a hard time with that, because I'm like, would there have been some sort of jewelry store equivalent? Like, maybe, but like, then I went down a whole rabbit hole, and at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what, Hartman's, last name, perfect, simple. So it was like Hartman's Jewelry House, or the Jewel House, or just something, but it's simple, it's effective, it doesn't need more than that. And you can see here, I'm just kind of throwing some lights in real quick. The interior is pretty much done. And it's not, like, it could definitely be fancier, like the tile and everything, but I'm satisfied for the most part. I did want to put some mirrors in there because it felt like if people are trying on jewelry, like, they're gonna want to have a mirror to see what it looks like. And I decided that was gonna be the sign because, I mean, it looks like a sign for a jewelry store. You can see I'm getting so frustrated with the frickin' freezing. It happens every time, like, if I leave my game alone for a while and then I come back and try to do things, it's just like, who are you? You're not my supervisor, how dare you? So here I'm trying to figure out where to put the mirror because just, there's not actually a lot of wall space. And which mirror? I ended up going with this big one even though it clips to the table a little bit, it felt right, and then I put another one kind of there, and I wanted to fit more, but it just, there's no space, there's no space. There's doors, it could have gone behind the tail, but that didn't make sense. Yeah, I struggled a lot. So now we're going to be decorating the upstairs portion, which is supposed to be like where the magic happens, where the jewelry is being made. Really struggled with this one as well, because we don't really have a lot of the things that I was wanting for this room. Like, it's just, they don't exist as CC. It's also a really hard topic to find a ton of information on, so I was just, the struggle was real. And I don't have time to spend hours upon hours upon hours researching things. So I was just like, you know what, let's just pick things that kind of look like they belong, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I wanted to include the gem cutter thing because that is actually functional, and that is the hobby of Peacock Joshua. I don't think it's the hobby of anybody else in the house. I definitely don't think that it's Adelard's hobby, actually. Let's just look. I have a spreadsheet open. I have spreadsheets open at any and all times. Oh, I hope clicking away did not mess that recording up. If it did, I'm sorry. I went out for a minute. It's fine. Everything's fine. No, Adelard likes fencing, so he's probably gonna have to hire somebody to, like, help him out with this, but that's fine. So I was just looking for pieces that really went. Another struggle I was having was with the wood tones. Like, I get that they're not all going to match, and I've accepted that. It does make sense in context, that these pieces weren't all made by the same person. They wouldn't have been made at the same time. Finishes would not be standardized, like, fine, but, like, there's a point where there's just too much difference, and it really bothers me. I thought about putting these, like, mine bucket things in there, and I was like, no, that doesn't really make sense. I do put the woodcutter's table because it's the closest thing that I have to, like, I guess, a station where someone would be making jewelry would look like. And it's a functional item, so even though they wouldn't be making jewelry, I can pretend. Most of the space is not meant to be functional, though. This is meant to be very decorative, just... The building looked weird without a second layer is why this exists. And I was like, well, if it's gonna exist, I have to decorate it, because it will bother me to know that it is up there being undecorated. So I put a little fire in, there's gonna be like a seating spot, there's a drafting table to like draft new jewelry, there's some storage, there's the gem cutter, there's some ingots, even though that probably doesn't make like a ton of sense, I don't care, there's some ingots. Oh, put the stool in. That little alchemist's piece kind of looks like something where metal could be melted for jewelry, so that's why that's there. That I know it's not super reasonable, but like if you squint, it's passable. And that's really the most important thing with a deer. And if I can squint and not question it too much, it's probably going in. Wanted to put a chair in, just like a comfy, cozy chair, where I could imagine, like, Joshua in his early years, this is where he spent a lot of his time, but he still wanted to have a moment just to himself to be comfortable. You can see we're still getting the pink flashing, but not crazy amounts. I'm not super mad about it. I wanted these tables to be pretty even. Yeah, this space probably isn't functional. Like, I didn't use OMSPs really for, like, walkthrough blocks, which I know is scandalous for me, but it doesn't need to be functional, because at the end of the day, there's nothing that they can do. They can't make jewelry. There's not a product that they're going to be able to make with any sets that's gonna matter, so they're probably gonna be able to use some things up here, but, like, I don't really care. So I was setting up, so the workbench, there's a drafting table, and then there was the other table that's just gonna have decorative stuff. That's like a little desk, maybe reading about, they would sit there reading about jewelry making things, I don't know. I wanted to have like a little reception area, that's why I saved those pieces, but it just didn't work out in the space. I was gonna put it up here too, and I was like, that doesn't make sense either. Because like at first I was like, well, the nobility would want a special place to look at the jewelry, and I'm like, they're not gonna come here to look at it. You are gonna go to them to show them your things. I had to cut a little bit because I was just moving things. So now I'm just putting like some crystal stone things, lots and lots of these OMSPs, which I have learned get in the way of everything, so I don't use them as much anymore, even though they're the perfect height. But up here it doesn't matter. So I just was putting everything on an OMSP that kind of looked like you could maybe use it for jewelry. I watched a few YouTube videos of people making jewelry as well, just to kind of see. I mean, they were mostly modern tools, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. This is me just like putting everything on an OMSP, and then I'll filter as we go. Lots of hammers, lots of weird looking tools that come from probably like a medical set or something, but theoretically could be used for anything. I needed one more for the little scissor thing and the scalpel looking thing. So this is also where I realized the OMSPs I used were not the right height for both tables. I wasn't thinking about it. But I wanted like more raw products to be used on the workbench. So like that cast iron pot, the loose amber, the loose gemstones. It made the most sense for that to go there, because that's where you're actually doing a lot of the work, maybe not necessarily the fine work, but the work. Those are all from like a coin set, those little, they look like solid silver salt shakers to me. Those were from like a, yeah. So medical sets, like various coin making, and then just like a lot of sets for like construction, so hammers and things as well. I'm not saying it makes sense, I'm just saying it's passable. I wanted to put the gems in there, like, I don't know. I don't know if they're melting them down or what. I don't know how jewelry making works. I will not pretend that I do. So I'm just putting, you know, just various tools. And this is, again, I always weed out things that later I'm like, yeah, this doesn't actually make sense here, and then I just delete it, but it's easier for me to have it all there, all present, and then figure out what I want later. Going, yeah, I want this, or like that magnifying glass I was super happy about. I didn't have like the jeweler's eye loop thing, but that was as close as I could get. And lots of hammers. I feel like jewelry making, you're hitting metal a lot, so it makes sense. Now, whether or not they would be thrown around on the table like this, it's another matter, but you know what? It was fine. Maybe he's just super duper messy. Yeah, not a ton of raw materials up here, but some. I did want to keep those hammers. I really like them. And they made the most sense in this shop. I kept some books. I didn't even put them on walkthrough blocks. Like, I was just not... I wasn't into it. And this is pretty much all that I do here. I think I actually remembered to color all of those so that they were invisible, you know? A rare thing for me. Those I was just thinking is like dyes. I don't know. Some of this was just like it looked good. I don't really have a plausible reason for it being there. Maybe some of the jewelry they're making is there's thread involved and they have to dye the thread. I don't know. It looks good, I can squint and be happy with it. That's all that matters. Pretty much done with the upstairs. Now I'm going to be working on the outside. I grabbed a couple big pieces just because I wasn't sure what I was going to put in the center, but really quickly I narrowed it down to that fountain, only to promptly realize that it was tiny. So I'm putting some like different stones around, but I was already thinking like, this does not fill up the space. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to fill this space? I'm like, well, let's start with some terrain paint. I went with a different one that's on the outside of the other lots because I already knew I was going to fence it in. So I wasn't super offended about that. And I wanted some green areas as well, but I figured I would do the whole thing, build the enclosure, and then like work on it. So you can see I'm leaving gaps in the fence where like people could in theory walk through. I know it's not functional, but for me it just adds that little extra bit of realism. Like, this is a public space back here. It's a little bit more secluded and protected, but it's still a public space. It still needs to be accessible from all sides. You shouldn't have to go through the jewelry store lot to get to it. And then I was just adding some green spaces because I did want it to be very green, like, not very green, this isn't a village green, but I wanted it to be relaxing and pretty. And I wanted to also keep it simple because this shouldn't be like a noble park or garden where there's like ornate flowers. Like, this should just be fairly simple, a nice place to go to meet up and chat with your friends or what have you. I love these purple flowers. They're from Sims 4, I'm pretty sure, but like, I love them. Do they make sense the way that I placed them? Probably not. Do I care? No. They started taking over though, so I had to like scale it back. Put the trees back there. I really love putting grass under trees. It makes so much sense that it would grow a little bit larger. And then these are like fern bush things, but like, they're very pretty and I like them, so I put them there. And I wanted to make sure that there was stuff to do here as well. Mostly for show more than actually people going to this lot for this particular purpose, but I don't like to build things that are not some way functional. So I did like little water things. There's the fountain in the middle. I really had a hard time. I was going through, I'm like, do I want to put a pond here? Archery didn't really make sense, it wasn't safe. And then I was like, well, what if I put a slide? Like, that's something that's like, you could see happening in like a hangouty area of like, okay, well, there needs to be a little space for the kids. And I don't have like monkey bars and things, so it was just, here's a slide. But it works, I think, in the area. It's very basic, very simple. Just like, hey, here's a slide. What I actually ended up doing though is, again, I'm just going through, I'm like, I briefly thought about putting a yoga area and I was like, no, that's too far. But then I remembered that they're converted and then medievalized, but they're like dog, I put a lute as well because that seems like something people will go play at the fountain. But like agility equipment for pets that was functional from Pet Stories and then converted for The Sims 2 and then medievalized, and I was like, this is perfect. I don't have this anywhere else really in the world. I might have it somewhere at some point, like a kennel or whatever, but like, I've never really had the space to really just put them out on a community lot and have it make sense. Arguably, it probably doesn't make a ton of sense here either, but it looked good and it filled out that big, because this was such a big open space and I just didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, yes, let's just put these in. Is it super logical? No, but as long as it looks good. You can squint and it's fine. I think I end up putting 4 of the pieces. It's a big set, like it is a big set, and having a dog park just doesn't seem like something feasibly that should exist in the medieval world, but I could get away with this. I don't change to grass underneath just because it would be brown anyways, but I'm happy with it. I like that it's there. The last thing that I did was seating, which you're going to see here, and that's pretty much the lot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was something a little bit different. If you have any comments or opinions, thoughts about it, I'm definitely still looking at that stone patio area behind the jewelry store as to what to do with it. But I think I'm going to add some peacocks, and that is it for the day. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I will hopefully see you guys in the next one.